Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for choosing to spend your afternoon here with us. For those who don't know, I'm Patricia Faber, and I do a podcast show to help people maximise property values. It's called Maximising Property Values, and it's on all your popular platforms, so the podcast platforms that is. So go on to Apple, Spotify, Google, Audible, and I haven't really bothered to just press a submit to all button because I don't think it's worth it. So you'll find it on those ones. They're the most popular ones. And if you listen to another platform and it's not one of these, do let me know and I will submit the podcast to that platform as well. That, however, up until November was a monologue where it was just me talking. But since November, I've added a guest series where I've had somebody else join me so that I'm not just talking on my own like a mad woman. And today, my guest is Louise Felstead. We are going in this particular recording, which is going to be released as a podcast on Wednesday, so a week from today. We are going to try to get to know Louise a little bit more. So, who is Louise? Now, Louise, normally I read out stuff about people, but today I am going to ask you to tell us who you are. Over to you.
Okay, so what I will do is start off by saying I am a businesswoman, a mother, um, a sister, a friend. I do lots and lots of things. I'm definitely an entrepreneur and have had an entrepreneurial brain mindset drive from being young. So I started work at 11 in my uncle's shop because he needed an assistant, and it was just a corner shop. Yep. So 11. My mum. I'm one of 7 girls. Was born in Manchester, Moss Side, and I've always had a head for business. My dad was a businessman. He drove trucks with stones to building sites and then moved stones. So he moved stuff away. I remember him vaguely because my mum brought us up as a single parent. And I'm reading bits of my profile. I'm a change agent. I like change. I like implementing changes. So that's no different to my property development. Very, very much an investor. I'm a landlord. I have properties in Manchester, London, various boroughs, Isle of Wight, uh, and a few more. So I think just to give you a heads up, I actually had to describe to somebody when I started in property, and this might tell people my age. I started my very first property I bought in 1986, and I still own it today. And I've used it to raise money. I rent it. I've stayed in it. I lived in it for, I can't remember how long. But I moved out, got married, moved back in, had a baby, moved out, and I've bought houses since. So a little bit about me, and back over to you, Patricia.
Oh, Louise, thank you. You had me laughing there. Right. So, Louise, welcome to Maximising Property Values. Now, thank you very much for that intro. Thank you, because that just gives us a lot to kind of like delve into. I'm very nosy, Louise, so be prepared. Um, but before we go into your main activities, we'd like to get to know you a little bit better. So,
Okay.
here are your questions. So, I've numbered them 1 and 2, but number 2 is actually probably 2 to 4 questions, depending on how you actually view things. But let's start. So, your question number 1 is this: what is the most challenging thing that has happened to you this year? So that's 2022. If anything, if anything. But if there's been any challenges, what's the most that has happened, and how did you overcome it, or how are you overcoming it? Because this, for the benefit of people listening to the podcast, which may well be, maybe next year, this is being recorded in March 2022. So there we go.
Okay. So I'm relating it to property because that's what the title of your room is.
Actually, I should
And
have probably said, no, it doesn't have to be property. It can be anything. So your
no, I
questions
want
right
it to
now,
be. No,
they're
I do
general.
want
Yeah,
it to
okay,
be.
that's fine.
And
Okay,
I'll
cool.
tell you why. Because I think one of the things that I'm really aware of is there's a lot happening in the world today, and there's a war in Ukraine, and I can't watch the news at the moment. Emotionally, it just really upsets me. And again, I read the news yesterday, and there's 120 Nigerians in Ukraine that can't get out, and that's upsetting my spirit. So I need to leave that in the room is one of my challenges personally. But I'm going to talk about property because if this is ever heard later on, the war in Ukraine is going on, and we don't know the future of it. So let me park that because that's a personal challenge for me and how I'm reacting. So property, since January to today, for those of you who know me and have been in the room and who've listened to me, I have a property portfolio that I'm in the middle of um developing masses of it. So I'll explain. Of over 50% of it. And when I say developing, it's because I'm changing the use of it. In some, I'm looking at service departments. I've got one rent to rent in all of those. One. And let me explain why. Because I came up on an opportunity. It was a family member. They needed some extra cash. And I basically said, let's rent your house. Let me rent your house. Go do what you need to do. And so that's my rent to rent. Buy to lets, my major section of my portfolio are buy to lets. And I've got planning permitted development on 3. I'm going up in the loft and I'm going out at the back. Yep. And at the end of this, so let me get this right. So March 2022 is today, and from January I've been looking at all the projects and working out which one goes first, second, and third in the year. Yep. So because I'm a landlord, I've also just inspected a number of my properties, and of 3 that I looked at in a day, one was amazing. Looked that, the lady offered me a cup of tea. And the reason I expected it myself is because the agents couldn't do it and had used COVID as an example of being late. So my challenge is making sure I have the money to do all these developments to maximize the value of every single one of them because they're all bought and they're all in need of a change. Yep. And it's how I plan those projects and plan to finance those projects in light of increased building costs. What can I do myself? I'm not going to be going on a building site as in picking up bricks or anything like that, but what can I do with a small builder, a large builder, and a big builder? Yeah. And how I plan and organize my life in terms of I'm a business owner. And for those of you who know, I've made it public. I am selling my business, but I'm also very, very aware of how to do that. My biggest challenge is making sure every project is aligned, all the money is aligned. Yep. And my builders are ready to build when I need them to build. Does that sound? It's a long-winded way of saying there's a lot of challenges in the world, but mine seem insignificant to what's really going on.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I we'll pick that down. We will go into it. So let's just park that for a moment and get you to answer your next two questions, which actually I think you've probably partly answered. So your second question is this: tell us two pros and two cons of your nursery business and your property business. So is that one question? Is it two questions? Four
It's
questions? Eight
two.
questions?
Actually 8, and I'll try and be organized in the way I answer. So let me talk about the nursery. I opened the nursery 20 years ago, and I was of an age, and I'm not going to tell anybody my age, but I am going to tell you I was of an age that I had a lot of energy, and there's a story behind that. So this is a pro, and I want anybody who's opening a business to hear this. We had a lot of energy and we had some spare cash. And my husband and I got married, moved house, started a business, moved house again, had a baby. We already had one child, so we had two boys, and we opened. So we got married, moved house. We moved into a house next door. We then got a gift, of some money, moved house again, opened a business, and then we stopped at that point. 5 things in 2 years. We did it all in 2 years. That was a pro. I had the energy. I had the forecast. I worked in the city. They gave me a golden hello. I put that in a bank. They gave me a golden goodbye. I put that in a bank. I got another golden hello. I put that in a bank. And so I had enough to set the business up. I didn't go out for masses of loans. We refurbed a building and we opened. And it took us about 6 months, 8 months. I loved every minute of it. And the con, let me tell you the con about it. I didn't understand builders and I didn't understand project managers, although I was a project manager in IT in a bank. I realized what he was doing halfway through the build and the refurb. And every time I changed the plans, he charged me money. And the builder came into a meeting and the builder charged me money for his time for being there. The project manager charged me money, and the schedule of works was then charged at a cost and changed at a cost. And he wouldn't move from any of the architect's drawings. And that was really frustrating for me. So that was a con because I was so naive in not understanding how builders and architects and project managers worked and with schedules of work. So I found it incredibly frustrating. So that was a con. So you wanted two pros and two cons. I loved running a business. I have an MBA. In fact, I have 3 degrees. I have a master's in information systems. I have a master's in business. And my first degree was information systems and communication to BA at a uni. So my son laughs at me because he goes, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor before you, Mum. And I kind of laugh because I've done 3 degrees. I am not going to study again. Every time I studied, when I did my master's, I had one child. When I did my second master's, I had another child. And so in the middle of this, whilst I was opening a business, whilst I was doing that, I also had studies and academia to do. But I like being busy. And people would say, how did you do it? I just managed my time. Yeah, I managed my time and I knew what I needed to do to get by. So that was, I would say, was another pro for me because I knew how much energy I needed to put into the things I was doing. And on maternity leave, it's so funny. So I got married and then I had another child. So on maternity leave, I was going into meetings in and out with the council. And the council was saying, oh, there's new schemes out here. You can get money for this and you can get money for that. And they gave us a little bit more money to open the nursery. So we were part of the original Sure Start schemes. So that was another pro, okay? So another con, I would say, is I'd forgotten that if you open a business, you have to pay staff. And so we didn't have that many children coming in. And I had 5 staff members. And I got to the first salary thing and I thought, oh my gosh, don't laugh. I did not have the money to pay the staff. And I hadn't realised that I had to pay. Doesn't that sound stupid? But it was stupid because I would say to anybody, when you're opening a business, you need to understand the implications of what you're doing, because it wasn't that we didn't have it, I just didn't allow for it in my head. So anyway, that was a bit of a con, because I did get the money, they did get paid, and 20 years later, I have a thriving business. In the background, I used to get the petty cash from the business, and I used to go out and buy dresses, because I liked buying dresses and I liked going to balls. So I would say money management is key when you open a business. Understand cash is king, cash flow is king. And yep, you need to understand your debt ratios, your gearing, all the things you're going to do with the business. I loved my business. I absolutely loved being in it. But I also went back to work in the city after 2 years because I was bored. So that's it, Patricia. Does that? So that was the nursery pros and cons. I'm going to go on to the property pros and cons. So, what you don't know is in those days, when you were buying property, I met my husband. So he had a flat. He moved in with me. So we had another flat to rent. I'd already got 4 houses by then. So we then ended up with his flat at the same time. So that meant we had a portfolio that we were managing, as well as doing all this building and everything else. Oh my gosh, this is really interesting. The pro about this was we'd acquired, obviously, because John moved in with me, and we had the child and the kids and everything, and we moved house. So doing that, it meant that we were able to raise more money on our portfolio and buy more, which is effectively what we did. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I'm just thinking about it and thinking I would use to, please don't laugh, right? But John, for those of you who've met John and Mr. K,
Can't help it, Louise.
I used to say to John, just sign this form. You've just bought a house. And he used to laugh because he's so laid back. He's so laid back. He's lovely. And I'd say, oh, yeah, we've just bought another house. And he'd look at me like I was mad. And I'd go, don't worry about it. I've got it sorted. I've done it this way, done it that way. And he'd just go, yeah, sorting, and he does all the books for the business. He does all the bookkeeping and everything else. So that's how it's gone. The con is that I don't understand the figures. And when I say I don't understand the figures, so if I'm doing a development, I need to make sure all the things stack up, right? And I don't always do that. But the one thing I learned is when I go into doing a development, and I've done about 6 or 7 or 8 over the years, I make sure I've got 20% of contingency. Now, the first project, I didn't have that 20% contingency. And I learned very early on that if I always have contingency in the bank, I'm okay to go over on a project. And that's, in a sense, I use it as a con, but it's a pro, because I never go into a project now without 20% contingency. And sometimes I might end up needing 40%. But going along with the 20%, it gives you that kind of comfort factor to get the other 20% if you need to go to 40%. And I've only gone over 40% once. So I get other people to do the figures, and I just make sure I've got enough to do the contingency. So that's on my property journey. So I laugh because John is now getting involved in property because he sits with me on Clubhouse and he goes, what did you do? And what are you doing? And so now he comes to the shows with me and he's getting involved. He came on the weekend to Colin's weekend, and he walked up the mountain ahead of me. So I thought, I'm not going to let John beat me. And so I followed him up the mountain and got to the top of the mountain. Colin said, I haven't
I'm
actually done this
killing
walk
myself
before.
here, Louise.
Colin's saying, I've not done this coastal walk before. It wasn't a coastal walk, it was a walk up a mountain, Colin. But it was absolutely lovely having John there, because John met the property people on Clubhouse. And for those of you who don't know, Patricia, you are coming to the next one, right? Because
Definitely.
we
Oh, well,
missed you so much.
let me know what date it is, though. But yeah,
Yeah, we will.
I'm definitely up for it.
Yeah, right. So literally, you would honestly, Patricia, John's now really interested in property, right? And I'm having to explain what I've done for years, and I'm going, but you didn't understand that then. And he's going, yeah, I want to understand it now. And I'm thinking, I'm shooting myself in the foot, because he actually gets on quite well with Colin. And obviously Cameron met him yesterday, and Mr. K met him. And John's really horizontal. Nothing phases him, you know. And so I'm now learning to have to explain a deal that I did 20 years ago when we first met, and then a deal that I did 10 years ago when we just increased increased our property portfolio quite, you know, in I think we just increased it. And it was like he was going, I signed all those forms. Was that what you were doing? I was going, yeah. And then my cousin was going to do some work with me. So this is a pro and a con, okay? So property, and then I'm going to stop. I think you've got more than 8 there, Patricia, but my cousin came into business with us. He gave us 100,000 actually. I'm not even going to pretend. I don't have to keep that from anybody. And he'd got 500,000 from somewhere as a result of something. And I said to him, look, let's do 20% of that. You go off and do another 20% somewhere else, but put the rest away. Anyway, just because he was interested in developing his own portfolio. He lost his on going to buy 2 flats off plan in an area that I said to him, please don't do that. Think about it. Just do it this way. And so I made quite a lot of money on the 100,000 that he came in with, and I gave him £110,000 back. That was the agreement. He was getting 10% of whatever I was doing. And I said to him, long term, you can now see that I can make money and give you 10% back. Join me again. And he has bought a couple of properties, but he lost 50% of the money. So I'm telling you, there are ways of doing it by working with family. And it was all, we made sure that we wrote documents to say this is how much you were getting back, and we signed everything else. But the con about it was he was doing higher risk stuff. And I kept saying to him, have you got this data in? Have you got this documents in the background? And 2 years later, it was sad because he didn't need to lose that money. So that's my property journey and my business journey.
Wow. Oh, Louise, do you know, whenever you laugh, you're prolonging your life. And you have made me laugh so much already on this. So thank you. Oh, I love what you've been talking about. And, there are some really serious things in there as well. But also, again, having met John, I just love the dynamics between the two of you. And for the people who are listening to the podcast, when Louise talks about Colin, she's talking about Colin Davison. So you can listen to his podcast, which was last week. Just go look at Maximising Property Values and search for Colin Davison, or come onto Clubhouse and search for him. Right. And Colin is Louise's accountant. So let's close that circle there. Ooh, I've got the dreaded red line.
We can still hear
So
you though, Patricia. So if you can't, I'll let you
okay,
know, and I'll just talk.
okay, great stuff. Do you know what? You were talking at one point, and Louise, I've not actually done this on any of the podcasts, but my heart literally froze because it reminded me of a dream that I had, if not last night, then the night before. So you were talking about how each time you did a degree, you were pregnant, and believe it or not, I just have to share this because I just remembered it, and it scared me when I was going through it. And when you said that, and I remembered again, it literally just froze me in my tracks. But I dreamt that I was pregnant, and I right now, and
Oh my gosh!
I know, and
You
I
know
was,
what? We're so similar. It's scary.
oh, and I was saying, but how could this be? And I'm thinking, well, I'm not Mary, I'm not Elizabeth, but how could this be? Oh, it was so scary. It was so scary. Anyway, So I just had to share my kind of like my nightmare that I had, which is not true, by the way. It was just a dream, but I don't know. I'm going, now that I've remembered that I had that dream, after this, I'm going to have to go and unpick that dream. Anyway, maybe one of my children is about to become a father. Who knows? Anyway, right. And then you were talking about how you made money from your cousin's 100,000. And again, I just thought, oh, parable of the talents there. You were given that and you multiplied it, but you haven't actually spoken very much about Mallard's Woods. And I know you've got a group of businesses, stroke companies. Do you want to tell us what they're about and how people, because you're on Clubhouse. Louise is on Clubhouse every weekday, usually, unless there's an emergency going on in her life,
Hmm.
every weekday between 8:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. and she just wants to help people there. Usually in a room in the club called UK Property Secrets. So that runs 8:30 till 9:30 a.m. every weekday. But Louise, how else do you help? Oh, and you do, don't you? You've not spoken about that either. You do the network lunches. How do you help people? Because you want to help people and you do help people. Do you want to kind of like tell us a bit more about that?
Okay, so there are two or three things that, and I'm going to make it public because it's really significant for me at the moment. And um, so on the day we opened Mallard's Wood 20 years ago, John and I had the option of changing the building into flats. Okay, and we chose to open a nursery because we wanted to give back to the local community. And I had a son at the time. He was 7 months old, and he got slotted in as the first child in the nursery. He's now um, 19 going on 20. He's absolutely amazing, works in TV, love him to bits, love both my boys. They're both very special. But we chose because we we felt to give back to the community, but we've had a free child in the nursery from day one. And when I say free child, it just so happens somebody walks through that door and they go, we can't afford childcare, but we need it. Or they'll come on hard times and a child parents come in and they'll go, we just lost our jobs, we can't afford to stay. But it's all into 20 years, there's always been a free child, a child that nobody would know who it is. We never tell anybody else who it is, but there's always a child that goes to our nursery free for a year. And if those of you who've got children know how much nursery fees are, we're looking at approximately this year 15,000. And we do it because we believe that we've been blessed with two children and of always uh, you know um been blessed. And I can't, it's not just about financial things, I'll explain it. It's about relationships and it's about people in our lives. And um that's why I do Clubhouse, because I've met some amazing people, Patricia, and I have to say you are one of them. And and you enrich our lives when you do things like this. And so for us, that's why we do what we do in the nursery. We do charity events every year. I love going to balls. So if any of you know any balls that you want to invite me to, I love going out and buying a ball gown. John, it's so funny because that's why at the beginning of getting the nursery, there was a ball. And I just said to John, oh, there's petty cash in the nursery. I can just go and use that. And when we spoke to our accountant, and Conan laughed because when we spoke to our accountant, the very, very first accountant that I had, he looked and he went, Louise, what have you been doing with the petty cash? He went, you won't have a business in a year if you continue to do what you're doing. Well, I'd done a theoretical master's in business. I thought I knew how to run a business. I seriously didn't. He just went, you need to stop. And so I'm handing the books to John. So that's what he did. He said, John, don't let Louise touch the finances and nowhere near the petty cash. Well, it still stands like that today because I don't touch the petty cash. There used to be cash, like people used to pay nursery fees in pounds. They certainly don't now. They pay everything's direct debit or standing order or money into bank accounts. So for me, all systemized because I'm an ex-IT person. And so I've lost the train of thought, Patricia, because like you know me, I can waffle on for ages. But there is something about giving and being of service that is at the heart of what I do. And that is what I'm about. And somebody said to me the other day, and I have to hear this, and that is, I used to say I'm a networker of networks, but I do lead people and I lead my team and my companies. And the reason I do it is because those of you who know, in the past 8, 9 months, I've had Kickstarters in my company. And when I heard about it, it was to give young people a chance who'd been out of work, not in work, been to university, not got jobs and things like that. I've had 11 people, in fact, 22 people go through my company. I'm on the final 11 now. And I employed 2 of them. And to give to them a way of going to work, earning money, how to behave, how to dress, how to interview. I just get something from it. I get it because you know what? When I was 11 and I went to work in my uncle's shop, he had a till and he said, "You're not allowed to use that till." He said, "I need you to do mental arithmetic and work out what the change is, then use the till and then give it back." So he taught me how to teach others the way he taught me. He said, "I need you to be able to do it. I need you to learn how to do it, but don't always rely on the machine that's there." I just want to give the way people have given to me throughout my life. And I learned how to work in a shop at 11. I went off to working. I always dreamt of working for Barclays, BZW. It was the investment banking arm of Barclays. I got my dream. I was there for 4 years. It was long enough for me. I did what I needed to do. And somebody gave me that opportunity. So for me, my life is about giving back. Back over to you, Patricia. I hope that helps.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And there was I going, Mallard's Woods, Mallard's Wood. Thank you. If only I'd taken my glasses off and looked properly,
No.
I would have been able to read from behind you.
Ah,
Um, so now, so Louise, for people in the room, for people who might be listening, Louise does a networking event. How often are you going to be doing that, Louise? In a year, let's say, would it be 3, 4 times or 2 times? How many times? Do you know?
oh, sorry. I had it on mute. Okay. I think I'm going to do them every couple of months. So 6 times a year. Yep. I've
Mm.
done 3. And so the first one was in the Ned, the second one was in the Aqua Kyoto in Mayfair, and the third one was in the Anthologist. The food in the Anthologist was okay, but the company was fantastic. There were 10 of us, and people came and went. And Cameron, who's not the Cameron who's in the room, Cameron joined. Imran came. There was people obviously in UK Property Secrets, but I met Amma, who came onto the weekend. Um, and, you know, you don't know who you don't know before, so I open it up and I say to people, please come along, connect in my bio. You're welcome. All I ask is you pay for your own meal. And the way it works is they come along, they talk about their own property business. I don't always invite newbies. And the reason I don't invite newbies is because I don't ever want to give them the wrong information. And I always like newbies to go to new people, the trainers who are out there who are doing it right. Um, but I always say experienced property. So they can build relationships and learn as we do. Um, what we're doing in our portfolios and what we're doing in our rentals and strategies going forward, even our tax details and how we're changing how we buy in businesses and not buying businesses, all of that is what we do on our networking. And so from meeting Suzanne, who's into environmental issues and eco, met her a couple of times and she talked at the table about what she does and how she does it. To Amma, who's quite quiet but loved the weekend just networking. But she met me and came on the weekend, and it was like, yeah, I just thought I'd come. I don't do very, and you realize that you impact people's lives by just sitting over a table and having a meal. And that's what I kind of like.
I completely get that. And also, Louise, just tell people how they can actually connect with you, because this is completely audio and we've not even put any links up today, which is fine.
Okay.
But just, tell people the best way to actually link up with you, so that if people are listening to this later on and they do want to connect, then there's actually that avenue for them to do so.
Okay, so I am on Facebook and I am on Instagram and I am on WhatsApp. And obviously, I'm on Clubhouse. And all of those social media channels need managing. So sometimes I think I miss people on the, if people say they want to come to the Ned, but I always say, contact me on the back channel. On Clubhouse has changed so much since we started. So I can get, and I do get messages as we're speaking. And Instagram, I do pick up most of the messages. And Messenger on Facebook is where I definitely go to. I don't necessarily give out my personal email to people unless I'm kind of then doing business and swapping data and everything else. Um, I'm quite selective if I go to exhibitions. I don't give out cards. What you see at the back of me, I've put that up. That will come down because I just put that up, especially for you, Patricia.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so people can connect with you on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Clubhouse. And in any of those channels, do they just search for Louise Felstead? Is that
Yeah.
what they do? And that will be absolutely fine. Okay, so we are talking about Louise. So that is Louise, Felstead, Felstead. And in fact, I should do that again, because whenever I'm spelling my name, if I don't go F for Foxtrot or F for Freddie, I normally do, people think I'm saying S for Sierra.
That's
So
true. Very true.
so
Yeah. The
that
other
is
thing is, Patricia, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but my Insta is Felstead Louise because there's as anybody watched Made in Chelsea, Binky Felstead has a sister called Louise Felstead. So my son has just done this research on, he's just used some software to search people. So if he types in Louise Felstead, Binky Felstead's sister comes up. So on Insta, I'm called Felstead Louise.
okay. You see, I didn't even know that. I've watched Made in Chelsea maybe once.
Yeah, my sons
Um,
watch it a lot.
Great stuff, great stuff, great stuff. So so you are kind of like, happy to help people using your, MBA degree. You say it was all theoretical, but they are still things that you learnt. So, you have to share that experience with people. Also the 20 years of running that nursery business, again, all of the experience that you acquired during those 2 decades, you are happy to share on Clubhouse. So again, if people want to link up with Louise, business. Louise does not describe herself as a property person. She describes herself as an entrepreneur, which is a business person. So, anything to do with business, I'm sure, even if Louise can't answer it, she might have an idea as to where you can go in order to get answers. So, you definitely want to be linking up with somebody like Louise. So, let us now look a bit further into your property deals. So, you've got 3 on the go at the moment, and you don't know which one to do first and which one to do next and the one
Oh,
to do
no.
last. Are you still not decided?
Right.
Or
So,
are you leaning in particular to, or to, towards one in particular?
okay. So there's one big one going on in the background, but there's another one that I was presented with literally on Monday, and it's only Wednesday, right? So I went to see the property Monday night, and I'm now I'm going to say this to everybody on here now, and you can challenge me if you think. I'm just careful, a little bit careful as to what deals I'm actually putting out, telling people about in terms of location. now, because this is a private deal. It will be done. I think I'm going purchase lease option. Um, my head's, it's like when there's a lot going on and you have to make decisions, and I don't make massive decisions, big money decisions without John. Okay, as much as I tend to sign the form, I kind of go, this is how much money is being spent and we'll go in this direction and stuff like that. And it's getting more complicated because he wants more details, but he never used to want more details, and it's quite funny because
Oh,
the boys.
Louise.
So here's the latest. I've just got the red banner. It's gone. Right. The latest things is our boys are now nearly on board, and it's definitely because of Clubhouse. It's because John and I talk about Clubhouse and stuff that's going on, and our boys are now part of the conversation. So now they're going, oh, this Clubhouse and property and business. They never ever wanted to run the nursery. It was really clear. But as far as property is concerned, now they're both going, oh, okay. So we're now going to stay in service departments. And so for me, I know, because I ran my own, I've changed beds, I've welcomed guests, I've done everything. I know I'm not going to run them, but I am going to get a team of people to run them. Okay. So I am looking at service department deals. So if I was to sit here and tell you the order of them, Patricia, I would say this. I have one particular house that needs renovating, and the saddest thing is there's somebody in it that's not very well. So I can't do it. I've got permitted development on it and everything. So that one has to stay until something happens. And the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to be sad. So I need to park that and leave it and just let it overrun. When I went to see the 3 properties in Manchester, one, I told you the lady offered me a cup of tea. The other one needs a bit of work, but I need a bit of TLC. One of them was so disgusting. I've actually served notice. And so this is why I'm saying being a property developer and an investor and a landlord and running a business, I kind of know where I want to maximize utilizing the money that's going to get me the best income in the quickest amount of time for me to go and invest in something else. And so all my projects have to have priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3. So big project last year, 2, loft extensions, all done, doing what they need to do. This year, I think I need to do 2 small projects with a big one running in the background and letting that do. So I think we've just found out that there's a mortgage company that does an AST to SA service department standard that I can run either as a buy to let or a holiday let stroke service department, and the mortgage company will let me do either. And so I'm changing that and I'm extending that house, and it will be whereas it's just 2 up 2 down at the moment in a holiday environment on the Isle of Wight, that one will go into a new mortgage, which gives me the opportunity to move it back into. It was a holiday let when we were given this house, so I need to explain that was a gift from John's mum, and an absolute blessing. It's been a lovely. The children grew up going on holiday there, so it's very special to the family, and so we're going to put it back into a holiday let. Our children, you talked about children having children, Patricia. John's brother has a child, and we want them to experience the cottage the way our children did. So it will go back to a holiday let, but the family will have priority on when we let it. And because it's a family house, really. So so that project will be done in the next few months. I don't know what else to say, Patricia. I can't, there's so much going on, and the boys are now getting a little bit of whiff of, what's happening over there. And one of them said, I might go and live in Manchester. And I thought, they're not living in one of my houses. They need to get their own. Does that sound selfish?
Do you know you're not the only one, to be honest? I just think, no, you're not moving into one of mine. Buy your own or rent your own.
Patricia, can I share that we've both got two boys, right?
Yep.
Yeah, right. So I can actually come to you and say, my son stood in one of our apartments the other day, and he just stood there and he looked around, never been interested in the last 2 or 3 years. In fact, he's been going, not interested, not going to go there, didn't see the designs, didn't see the build. He stood in it the other day. It's all beautifully renovated. He went, Mum, I could live here. I said, I was really quiet. I just thought, you think so, do you? And I never said, I just thought, just don't think you are. You can go and find your own. But yeah, we've done well enough that they are now getting interested and involved, which we're really grateful for. And Clubhouse has been a real, I suppose, a real opportunity for us to get them interested at least.
So, Louise, regarding, and I know exactly what you mean about getting your children involved, because it's every parent's, I think, dream when they work for themselves that their children will take over that business, because then you don't kind of like feel that you're just toiling for money. You think you're toiling for a legacy, something that's going to carry on after you've gone. But not everyone is that lucky. So congratulations on that. And that sounds really good. Let's talk about the Isle of Wight property. So
we're going on holiday and then we'll go and stay there because we can. Yeah, because everything that we do, we can do online. Everything. And even down to, I have managers in the nursery, they manage it. I have managers, and I'm growing and developing my property manager. And, I'm convinced that as we systemize and continue to systemize, we can do it. Now, I went to a property meet about 3 weeks ago, and there's a chap there who, in fact, I'll tell you, he's running a service in the Isle of Wight, and he said he'll manage it for us afterwards. Because we did, when John's mum had the house, she had it as a holiday let, and a holiday let firm ran it. And there was an elderly lady across the road who used to go in and clean and change the sheets and everything else. Yeah. That obviously stopped when we changed it into an AST, and John's mum wasn't able to do it anymore. So, but we've now got contacts over there who will run it. I don't necessarily want another property over there unless I knew I was going to, and I know the income's going to be decent. Yeah. Does that sound, so we'll
it,
stay there, get the builders, because we can stay there and have the extension done, because it's not going to be a massive extension. We think it'll be like a conservatory, but not a conservatory. So we'll see what we get out of what we've got.
so in terms of, can you just kind of like give us some indication, I guess, AST to SA, roughly, what difference in price are you looking at
Oh, in fact,
on a monthly basis?
yeah. I'm talking to Paul Acorn Finance about that at the moment, and I'm going to be talking about him because obviously he's in part of our group, and he's got lenders. He's got 2 or 3 lenders at the moment that are doing SA mortgages. But I asked him because it's really important, and this came out in a meeting this morning that we had on Clubhouse, getting your legals and your mortgage right. Because if you don't, you're running the risk of contravening your mortgage contract. And so I have this building as an AST today. And the option I'm giving to my tenants is if they want to leave early, then they can leave early. But what's really important is I want it straight into an SA. So I'm remortgaging it under a modular. I can move it from SA to AST at a higher rate, You're going to have to go to Paul for the rate because he hasn't given me the rate right now because I'm literally in the process of doing it. And because I don't want to contravene, I've got a buy to let mortgage on it at the moment. Yep. So I don't want to contravene that. I'm not going to turn it into an essay until I make sure I've got a mortgage. And the mortgage company that I've got the buy to let with doesn't do essays. So.
Right. Okay. I kind of like get that. And that makes perfect sense because it's, again, to me, it's worth paying a little bit more for the security of knowing that you're not doing, you're doing it right. Your mortgage company is not going to have a problem with what you're doing. It's so worth it.
Yeah,
It's like insurance, isn't it? To be honest.
absolutely. When you talk about legals, Patricia, I love the way you present it because you say there's a right way and there's a wrong way. You're either doing it right or you're doing it wrong. And at the end of the day, I just don't want the hassle of somebody coming to me later and saying, you contravene this contract and that contract, because there are people, I know the people who live there at the moment, they're lovely tenants, but they might not be happy with the fact that I'm turning into an SA. I've not made it a secret. I've told the agency that runs it over there at the moment, they don't run SAs, which is why at this property thing, I met these home buyers, developers, stroke service department people on the island, and they hopefully will run it for us.
Do you know, that sounds, again, that's a power of networking, isn't it? Because if you hadn't gone to the networking event, you wouldn't have met them. And if they're going, what about the old woman across the road
Oh,
who
she
used to do
passed
the
away.
cleaning?
She
Oh,
passed
did
away,
she?
which is
Oh,
why when John's mum was doing it, we would stay there 2 or 3 weeks in the summer. And, John's brother would take his children. So we'd split the summer up between us. And then we'd go at half terms and things like that. But this woman would do the whole thing. If we stayed there, we'd do our own sheets and everything else. But we'd give them to her to iron and everything. So she did it for years, many, many years. And Teo's first time of going, my eldest son's 24, his first time of going over there, he kept saying to me, Mum, we were on a boat. And it was midsummer. We were going over on the Isle of Wight ferry. And because we've got a property over there, we get reduced tickets, by the way. For anybody who's got a property in France or Spain or places like that, there are companies that do reduced things. Anyway, the Isle of Wight do this thing. If you've got a property over there, you get reduced ferry tickets. So I'm saying to Teo, you're going on this ferry, we're going across to the island. He thought we were going to Jamaica. I'm saying to him, that's because we'd literally just come off a holiday in Jamaica. We went on a boat in Jamaica. So as he's going over to the Isle of Wight, he's going to John, Daddy, look, there's Jamaica. I was thinking, I wish it bloody well was. It was the Isle of Wight, and it was, but it was a lovely holiday. It is a lovely place. So back over to you. I just think people need to do it right.
do you know, I couldn't agree with you more. And that there is how, we try to do things. And, for people, as Louise said, Paul Acon, so that's Paul Thompson, um, with an H, from Acon Finance, and he's going to be a guest in a couple of weeks, I think. If not, I know it's Sam coming next, so he's either the week after or the week after that. So within the next 3 weeks, he's definitely coming on. So if people have questions about that, they can come and ask them, or they can send me a message beforehand, and I can make sure that he talks about it. Do you know, Louise, it's just been like a chat, really, which is what these things are supposed to be anyway. But I honestly just want to thank you for, giving up your afternoon, because um, it is, it's the mental preparation as well as, giving up the time to actually be here. So, I really want to thank you. And, for people who are listening, if you want to kind of like reach out to Louise, you can do so on Clubhouse, Louise Felstead. You can do so on Instagram, Felstead Louise, Louise, and you can do so on Facebook, Louise Felstead. Very, very easy to do, Louise Felstead, with EA at the end, well, EAD. So do definitely reach out to her. And if you can come to her next networking thing, that will be absolutely great, because there'll be lovely food and there'll be lovely company too. So how do you connect with her? Come onto Clubhouse, 8:30 till 9:30 weekdays. She's always on Clubhouse in UK Property Secrets. So why don't you do that? And this recording will be on Clubhouse, so you can access it. I'm actually thinking about clearing my thing and deleting these perhaps after a month, and just leaving them in the podcast once the podcast has been released. So it will definitely be on Clubhouse for at least a week, and the podcast itself will be released on Wednesday, and that will be there, forevermore, I guess. So do definitely, have a listen again, and just recognise in the words that Louise is saying how you can actually link up with Louise and enrich one another's lives, because that is what this series is all about. So also tap on Louise's face if you are not already following her. If you're not following her, tap on her face and follow her. And next week, I'm scheduled to have Sam Fongo. He's going to be talking all about auctions. He's just, everyone who's been a guest is passionate about what they do, and that's not going to change. So I do hope that you come back next week and listen to what Sam has got to say. But on that note, again, I'm just going to say, Louise, thank you very, very much for being here, and I hope that it's not been too much of a grueling time.
Patricia, you really are the first person I met in Clubhouse, and I've met in person, and I just want to say thank you for having me on here.